Hello, welcome to the A Book a Day channel. Today, I want to interpret a book for you, which is Philippa Perry's The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read, with the subtitle "And Your Children Will Be Glad That You Did." Doesn't it sound a bit fresh? This title gives the impression that it's definitely a book about parenting methods. Moreover, according to this title, parenting is a systemic process that involves at least 3 generations. The core role of parents, their parents of the previous generation, and the children. This book has just been released in the UK, and quickly became the top book in the Sunday Times and the best-selling book in the parenting category on Amazon. The author of this book, Philippa Perry, is a seasoned psychotherapist with over 20 years of experience in the United Kingdom. In the preface of this book, she mentions that many parents are confused and experience psychological issues due to parent-child relationships among the clients she counsels. Through listening to their stories, Perry gradually realized that the core of parenting lies in our relationship with our children. A healthy and intimate parent-child relationship is the source of a child's healthy growth and empowerment. Like fertile soil supporting the thriving growth of plants. Although parenting involves countless details in dealing with children, Perry says that the purpose of writing this book is not to teach everyone how to be perfect in the details, such as how to change diapers correctly or what time children should go to bed. Instead, it's about focusing on a few major things: our relationship with our children, our relationship with ourselves, our relationship with the past, and our relationship with the world. Furthermore, Perry named this work The Book You Wish Your Parents Had Read because she presents an important new perspective. She suggests that the psychological trauma and erroneous behavioral patterns caused by parental neglect or mistakes in our own upbringing can be unconsciously imposed on our own children during our parenting, perpetuating the cycle of harm and misconduct through the generations of our lives. Therefore, Perry intentionally presents a series of principles and methods in the book to remind those who are already parents or about to become parents how to avoid repeating their parents' mistakes in parenting and break the cycle of harm inheritance. Next, I will introduce the essential content of the book in 3 parts. First, let's talk about how to engage in self-healing and repair while interacting with your children. In the second part, we'll follow Perry's narrative to see how to create a normal and comfortable growing environment for children. This environment is actually less related to material conditions and more about understanding and responding to the child's feelings appropriately. Finally, we'll learn why it's said that the best education parents can provide to their children is by setting an example and guiding them to emulate themselves in the education process. Part 1. At the beginning of this book, Philippa Perry tells the readers a story about her colleague, a highly skilled and kind-hearted psychotherapist named Taye. By even the strictest standards, Taye should be a perfect mother. However, one day, she did something that surprised even herself. Her 7-year-old daughter, Emily, was playing on a climbing frame at a park, and told her mother that she was stuck and wanted her mother to help her down. But at that moment, Taye felt an inexplicable surge of anger. She thought her daughter was being unreasonable, so she yelled, "Get down right now." Emily struggled and eventually climbed down herself. Later, she wanted to hold her mother's hand for comfort, but Taye's anger had not yet subsided, and she pushed her daughter away. This made Emily cry in distress. About a week later, Taye took Emily to the park to play on the climbing frame again. In a moment of clarity, Taye realized the source of her unexplained anger the previous time. It turned out that in her own upbringing, Taye's mother had always been overprotective and restricted her actions due to fear of her encountering danger. This excessive protection had made Taye feel that she had lost confidence and the ability to explore new things and develop herself. The negative emotions deeply buried within her were suddenly triggered in a familiar parenting scenario when her daughter was stuck on the climbing frame. This incident exposed not only Taye's anger towards her mother but also her strong desire not to let her daughter grow up in a similar environment. Taye promptly apologized to her daughter and explained, resolving the tension. I believe that many parents who read this will resonate with it. Sometimes when we get angry with our children, we might find ourselves thinking, "Oh my parents did the same thing to me, and I've unknowingly followed in their footsteps." Perry tells us that if we suddenly experience strong negative emotions like anger, frustration, fear, or disgust towards our children's words or actions, we should consider it as an alarm from our own inner self. It's not reminding us that our children have made a mistake that needs correction, but rather that our inner traumatic memories have been reawakened. As mentioned in our previous reading of The Body Keeps the Score, if our psychological trauma occurred during infancy, the damage it causes can be more severe, even leading to lifelong obsessions and behavioral patterns, as long as an element related to these traumatic memories appears in the external environment. The fear experienced during the traumatic event will resurface. In particular, our excessive anger towards our children's words and actions is a form of imbalance. It's our self-awareness striving to restore emotional balance using extreme regulatory measures. At this point, the higher brain functions responsible for language, thinking, and empathy temporarily shut down, making it impossible for us to understand our child's feelings. So Perry advises us that when dealing with our own unnamed anger caused by trauma, we should neither wrongly blame our children nor excessively blame ourselves. Instead, we should trace and deconstruct its source and work to establish new response pathways in our consciousness so that this harm is not transmitted to our children and future generations through our misconduct. To establish these new response pathways, it's crucial to develop empathy for our children. Take some time to think about how you acted in a similar way to your children's age and what emotions and feelings were involved. What reactions did your parents have back then? And deep down inside, how did you want your parents to treat you? Perry provides an example in the book. She had a client named Oscar who adopted a 1.5-year-old boy. However, the boy often dropped food or threw things around during meals, which made Oscar very angry. Perry asked him what treatment he would have received if he had behaved similarly at the boy's age. Oscar honestly replied that his strict grandfather would have knocked his fingers with the handle of a dining knife, and then sent him out of the room. Although this childhood experience was difficult to discuss, after counseling Oscar, by identifying the source of his anger, began to increase his patience with his adoptive son. For many parents, one of the most frustrating situations is when their children can't stop crying. Perry analyzes that this situation is likely linked to our own experiences during infancy, where crying was met with harsh attempts to stop it and the inability to release negative emotions. We instinctively avoid recalling that pain, and so we try to make our children be quiet. You might be thinking, well, I've already made similar mistakes. What should I do? Perry says that cracks in parent-child relationships are inevitable, but what's most important is the repair. Parents' willingness to actively repair their relationship with their children is of great significance to the children. They are still in the process of developing their personality, body, values, and life skills, and parents are their primary source of security. Many children have a fear that if their parents no longer love or need them, it feels like the sky is falling. Some parents have asked Perry if apologizing to their children would undermine their authority in the family. In response to this doubt, Perry firmly states no. What children need is authentic and trustworthy parents, not perfect ones. If we pretend that we never make mistakes and fail to acknowledge the true reasons for our actions, children may begin to doubt their own understanding and fall into cognitive dissonance. Children who excessively rely on their parents may begin to blame themselves unnecessarily, scrutinizing their words and actions with a magnifying glass to find imaginary mistakes, resulting in a people-pleaser personality. On the other hand, some children may already see through the facade, and flaws in their parents' refusal to admit mistakes may lead to a more distant and indifferent parent-child relationship. In such a process, children, when they encounter manipulative people, are more likely to take the wrong path. Conversely, if we are willing to admit our mistakes and take active steps to repair the relationship, this positive habit will also be passed down to our children. Perry recalls an incident where she was driving to pick up her 4-year-old daughter. Her daughter was in a bad mood, but when they got home, she ate a piece of cake in the kitchen and said, "Mom, I'm sorry for throwing a tantrum in the car earlier because I was hungry. But I'm fine now." Perry found this moment very satisfying because her daughter was able to self-reflect on her behavior and attempt to mend the rift in their mother-daughter relationship. So, from the moment a child is born and begins to accompany you, the first thing to do is to pass on the positive and beneficial experiences from your own past, such as love, patience, and effort to your child while trying to suppress the negative experiences and emotions from your childhood. These negative experiences and emotions sometimes manifest in a hidden form, which is our inner monologue. Take a moment to think about whether there is a voice deep within your mind or in your thoughts that judges your every action. Perry tells us that if the criticisms and questioning from this inner voice far outweigh self-affirmation and approval, we need to be cautious. Excessive self-criticism can not only affect ourselves, but also guide our children's cognition in the wrong direction. Perry shares a case in the book. She once had a client named Elaine, a mother of 2 children. During the counseling, Elaine discovered that the inner voice of discouragement and self-denial that constantly plagued her came from her mother. Her mother had been very harsh and negative towards her in Elaine's entire childhood, leaving indelible marks. Consequently, in adulthood, Elaine inevitably inherited her mother's character. Once Elaine realized this, she started consciously fighting against this inner voice, and made an effort not to pass on this negative emotion and self-denial to her 2 children. At Perry's suggestion, Elaine stopped wasting precious energy on arguing with this inner voice, and instead treated it as a difficult colleague. She listened to what it said, but didn't take it too seriously. At the same time, she courageously encouraged herself to step out of her comfort zone and attempt things that the inner voice had forbidden. Each time she succeeded, she found that the frequency of self-criticism and its volume gradually decreased. Towards the end of this part, Perry also gives us a helpful tip for achieving self-repair in parenting. It's essential not to use simplistic labels, like good or bad, when evaluating ourselves or our children. For ourselves, out of fear of becoming so-called bad parents, we might be reluctant to admit our mistakes, and we may ignore our child's emotional needs. On the other hand, constantly making value judgments about our children's words and actions, especially using harsh criticism, doesn't contribute to their growth or improvement, and simple criticism only increases their frustration, leading to a more distant parent-child relationship. So, what's the right approach? It's to appreciate the efforts of both ourselves and our children, and describe the details of those feelings. For example, if a child spends a lot of time drawing a picture, an inadequate parent may show no expression or criticize the child, saying, "It doesn't look like anything." A typical parent might give a general compliment like it's good. But an ideal parent would say, "You spent a lot of time and effort on this house. It's amazing. This house looks like it's smiling, and seeing it has brightened my mood." Perry emphasizes that how we perceive ourselves and how we react to our children's words and actions are crucial in parent-child relationships. Our reactions to children shape their character and personality qualities. Part 2. Now, let's continue with Philippa Perry's insights on creating a nurturing environment for children. Many parents might mistakenly think that providing a correct and comfortable environment for growth mainly involves material conditions, like living environment, financial resources, or educational choices. However, Perry emphasizes that these factors are not as crucial as the overall feeling of home. She gives an example in the book where a lawyer friend visited a refugee family living in very poor conditions. Despite their challenging living situation, one of the children said to him, "We have a home. It's just that it doesn't have a fixed place right now." Perry's point is that a correct and comfortable environment for growth means that, even if parents cannot spend a lot of time with their children due to various reasons, or even if material resources are limited, children still have a close and secure bond with their parents. So, how can you create such an ideal environment? Perry offers 2 principles, based on her research and psychological counseling experience. Firstly, it's essential to face disputes honestly. Every family has conflicts, but the key is how these conflicts are handled and resolved without damaging relationships between family members. Conflicts can put children in a state of alertness, threatening their sense of security, and pushing them into a state of constant vigilance. As parents, how should you handle conflicts? The first step is to address the issue and express how it makes you feel without attacking the other person. For instance, when you were on your phone and didn't respond to me, I felt hurt. This is a constructive way to communicate the problem and define your feelings. Avoid direct accusations such as "you're always on your phone and ignore me," as this can exacerbate conflicts and divert the conversation from its main topic. Attacking only triggers a defensive response in the other person and doesn't contribute to resolving the issue. Additionally, during disputes, it's important to consider the other person's feelings and not dismiss them outright. It's also necessary to reflect on what unmet needs, both for yourself and the other person, might be behind the conflict. Finally, you should differentiate between the anger or frustration during the dispute that arises from past traumatic memories and the emotions triggered by the actions or words of your family members at the moment. I've previously covered a book titled How to Argue, which provides principles for arguments among intimate partners. These principles include maintaining honesty, acknowledging facts, always believing that the other person has good intentions, recognizing that if the current situation is unsatisfactory, the maximum responsibility the other person should bear is half, and discovering the underlying needs of the other person and your own character flaws during arguments, transforming conflicts into constructive communication. These principles are equally applicable in family settings and situations involving disputes between parents and children. The second principle is to be understanding and accepting of your child's feelings rather than solely focusing on dealing with specific issues. Perry found through her counseling that the inability to receive comfort from parents during childhood is a major cause of depression in adults. Many parents, either through negligence or intentional, overlook their children's feelings, especially negative ones. However, children's feelings don't just vanish when denied. They accumulate as deep-seated wounds. For example, a child growing up in a family with constant conflict and violence may mistakenly believe that violence and control are part of love. They may develop a strong dependency on any small sign of affection from others. Perry shares an example in the book about Anne and John, a couple with a 10-year-old son named Lucas. Due to their demanding jobs, Anne and John spent very little time with their son, often relying on hired help. One day, Lucas attempted suicide. During counseling, Lucas revealed that his parents were rarely present, and he often overheard them making phone calls to arrange someone to take care of him, making him feel like a burden and unloved. Even when Lucas tried to communicate his sadness to his father, John's responses seemed perfunctory, such as "Dad will buy you a new game console," or "We'll go to the zoo on Saturday," and so on. To change this situation, John took advice from a therapist. He began asking Lucas about his feelings when he was upset and listening attentively, without rushing to fix things. John also temporarily suspended his work and spent a month at home with his son. After Lucas's emotional recovery, John and Anne agreed that at least one of them would be home before 6 p.m. to ensure they spent a minimum 2 hours with their son. Therefore, as parents, it's essential to be empathetic and responsive to your child's feelings, particularly the negative ones. This doesn't mean you should spoil your child by giving in to every demand, even unreasonable ones. For example, there's a father named Dave with a 4-year-old daughter named Nova. Nova could sometimes be quite stubborn, and when something didn't go her way, she would burst into tears. Dave didn't want to engage in endless arguments with his daughter, nor did he want to give in unconditionally. So, Perry suggested a different approach. One day, when Dave was driving, Nova's cousin sat in the seat she usually occupied, which led to Nova getting upset and crying. Instead of scolding Nova or making the kids switch seats, Dave knelt down so his eyes were level with Nova's and told her he understood how she felt. He acknowledged that Nova really wanted her usual seat, but the current situation was a temporary exception. He then asked her where else she'd like to sit. Gradually, Nova stopped crying, sat in her child's seat, and began chatting happily with her cousin and Dave during the journey, as if the whole seat issue had never existed. Part 3. Now that we've discussed self-improvement and healing for parents and creating the right family environment, let's delve into another important aspect of parent-child relationships: how to teach children appropriate behavior and lay a solid foundation for their future social lives. In another renowned book on child education, The Gardener and the Carpenter, it is pointed out that children inherently struggle to accept passive, externally imposed information. Instead, they actively observe, imitate, and comprehend the behaviors of adults. In many ways, children may even understand their parents better than the parents themselves. Therefore, Perry suggests that if you want your children to grow up with the right behaviors, the traditional method of stern instruction and lecturing might not be very effective. To make your child into the person you desire them to be, you must exhibit the behavior that aligns with your expectations when your child is present. We all hope our children behave appropriately in public, but Perry mentions that behind these behaviors are 4 critical abilities: resilience, adaptability, problem-solving, and empathy. Children with strong imitative abilities and a stable family environment can easily acquire these 4 skills through imitation. Perry provides an example in the book. If you want your children to help with household chores and develop good habits in life, the ideal approach isn't to motivate or bribe them with allowances or rewards. Instead, the key is to stimulate their natural desire to play and imitate by involving them in housekeeping during games like playing house. This way, they participate in chores not solely for material rewards, but because they feel a sense of accomplishment in contributing to the family, enhancing their sense of belonging and strengthening the bond with their parents. Of course, not all children smoothly imitate and learn behaviors, but parents should not rush to criticize them. Instead, they should use empathy to analyze the needs behind their actions. Many parents enforce strict discipline for their children's behavior, and this can make the children feel their independent will is being ignored, leading to feelings of humiliation and anger. However, overly permissive parenting can lead to children becoming unruly, losing their sense of purpose, and lacking self-regulation. So what should you do? Perry suggests a solution called cooperative parenting. In this approach, you first lead by example and set a goal for your child. For example, keeping the house tidy is essential, and parents work hard to make life convenient and comfortable. If your child's room has become messy, you hope that they will clean it themselves. The second step is, if the child hesitates or resists, to explore their feelings together. Show understanding and empathy towards your child's feelings. For instance, ask if they believe that cleanliness isn't related to comfort, or if they feel that being forced to clean diminishes their control over their personal space. Or perhaps, the mess in their room results from friends or siblings during play, and they find it unfair to clean up after others. Next, sit down with your child as equals and discuss how cleaning the room might seem like a daunting task. Brainstorm ways to make it less difficult, more enjoyable, and challenging. Finally, continue to reinforce these behaviors until they become a fixed pattern in your child's life. Conclusion. This concludes the main content of the book you wish your parents had read. Although parental love for children is the world's only unconditional love, not all parents can establish a healthy and wholesome parent-child relationship. Many parent-child relationships are filled with unintentional or deliberate mistakes, leaving a negative impact on the child's life. The author, Philippa Perry, based on her years of case experience as a therapist, focused on constructing the ideal parent-child relationship, addressing 3 vital parenting issues: how to heal and improve oneself in the process of child rearing, how to create a normal and comfortable growth environment for children, and how to guide children through words and actions. In the book's afterword, Perry summarizes the specific solutions to these 3 issues into 10 items, explaining that parenting is indeed a challenging, lengthy, and tedious endeavor. However, if you follow these 10 items, you will find it much easier and feel your personal growth and fulfillment. Some of these items include understanding your childhood obstacles and how they impede your ability to establish better parent-child relationships. When problems arise, observe and analyze them from both your child's perspective and your own. In parent-child relationships, there are no winners and losers. It's not a zero-sum game. Cooperation is the key. Help your child find ways to express genuine feelings. Don't rush to tell your child what to do. Let them brainstorm solutions themselves. Acknowledge your mistakes, work on changing them, and promptly repair your relationship with your child. In the principles and solutions to these 3 issues, Perry emphasizes one overarching concept. Children are not troublesome entities awaiting management, nor are they projects requiring perfection. Children are individuals who need to be understood and supported. When problems arise, don't solely focus on your child. Carefully examine your own behavior and your relationship with your child, as this is often where you will find the answers. So this is the essence of this book. Feel free to click the share button to share this video with your friends. Congratulations, you've finished another book.